Hi, I am Mark T. Welcome to the second video in my Staying Between the Lines playlist. As I mentioned in the first video of this series, compliance as a word means aligning with imposed requirements. This sentence is filled with words that cause me to bristle. Imposed. Somebody else is telling me what to do. Do they understand my business? Do they realize how inconvenient this is apt to be? Are they doing this for their own benefit only? When I look at these questions, the word trust springs to mind. To what extent do I or can I trust the entity imposing these requirements? Without an accurate level of trust, compliance begins to look like a war of wills instead of a coordinated effort done by cooperating entities. Requirements. This word has a synonym: mandates. Immediately, my 6-year-old self jumps up and screams, "Comply with what? Says who?" If I don't see a business advantage to the mandate, why should I do it? If I just work around the requirement, will anyone ever know? I remember working on a committee a number of years ago. We were implementing a new file transfer schema. There were data elements that were optional and others that were mandatory. During one call, one particularly belligerent participant said, "We implement all the data elements we find to be mandatory." That was a very telling statement. Aligning. This word is often used when I'm being asked to do something different or opposite to what I'm currently doing. We need to align priorities. Can often mean I need you to drop your priorities and take on my priorities. As you can see, the role of a compliance team can be like walking through a minefield blindfolded. They will encounter conflicting priorities, budgets already assigned to other projects, overloaded staff with no bandwidth to address compliance mandates, and, dare we say, inflated egos that need to be handled wisely to make the compliance role effective. Compliance. To ensure an accurate and appropriate compliance, we must answer the following questions. Who is imposing these requirements? How does this entity have the right to impose these requirements? What do they have authority over? Requirements are imposed for a reason. What is the reason? What teams and infrastructure are impacted by these requirements? What are the consequences of non-compliance? In this video, let's answer these questions. Who is imposing these requirements? As a consultant, I can come to your company and review your current operations, compliance, and vendor management structures and processes. Based on my research and investigation, I can make recommendations and suggestions for improvements. But I cannot mandate. I do not have authority over your company. So, who are you accountable to? Who has the authority to mandate requirements on your company? As a company in the payments industry, here's a partial list of the authorities who do have the right to mandate requirements. Government regulatory departments. On the issuer side of the business, these would include the banking regulator, either federally or at a state or province level. On the merchant side, the government department overseeing consumer affairs would have legislation impacting on how businesses must run. There are entities that are directly regulated by these departments, like banks, credit unions, and acquirers. Other downstream entities like merchants, merchant services companies, card issuing program managers, and fintechs will have contractual relationships with these banks, credit unions, or acquirers. Since the regulator's requirements apply to the regulated entities and their downstream partners, you, as a downstream partner, will have compliance to legislation included in your contract. Professional associations. These may include business associations, a Better Business Bureau, or merchant trade organizations. Some of these organizations have compliance requirements to protect their own reputation. Others are certifying entities recognized by the governments. These operate as gatekeepers, allowing or disqualifying companies from participating in a specific industry. Payment networks. Direct connectors to payment networks sign on as franchisees to the payment networks. Included in the franchise agreements are requirements for the franchisees to comply with all the payment network requirements and rules. Typically, there will be a clause indicating that governmental requirements overrule franchise requirements. but that is the only compliance exception I am aware of. Once again, these franchise agreements require the franchisee, their downstream partners, and their service providers to all comply with the network's requirements. Service providers and outsource partners. You will have contractual agreements with your processor, card provider, merchant services company, POS solutions provider, and other outsourced partners. In each of these contracts, they will have requirements you need to comply with. You should also have requirements they need to comply with. Failure to comply with these contractual requirements can jeopardize your relationship with that service provider or could leave you with a service provider who doesn't perform at a level you have contracted them. Federal and local governments. These entities don't necessarily have regulations impacting payments, but some do. However, they do have requirements that may impact the options a company has to comply with mandated payment compliance. For example, zoning bylaws can impact what your business can do at a specific location. How does this entity have the right to impose these requirements? The rights to impose requirements can be legislative or contractual. Governments and business associations do have the right to legislate rules to ensure safe and legal business practices. Compliance with regulations flowing out from the legislation is not optional, and non-compliance can lead to criminal charges. Payment associations, service providers, and business partnerships tend to be structured by contracts. These contracts may be template or customized. They may be bilateral or multilateral. However, each contract will have requirements and deliverables that need to be complied with. Failure to comply can cause a breach of contract. This breach may negatively impact your company's day-to-day operations or may remove your business from the contractual relationship, terminating your company's ability to fulfill its business mandate. What do they have authority over? I recommend you have a database of the authorities who can or do mandate requirements for your business to comply with. That database should also detail which aspects of your business each authority has jurisdiction over. The list should include roles, products, and business flows. This type of document will help prevent two compliance errors. Number 1, imposing compliance requirements too widely, causing unnecessary requirement loads. For example, while a credit card account has a card attached to it, there are payment network compliance requirements that account must abide by. If the account is sent to collections for non-payment, that account changes. It no longer has a credit card attached to it. The account is now listed as a bad debt to be collected. Therefore, the compliance requirements imposed by the payment network no longer apply to that account. However, there are legislative requirements for debt collection that now impact that account. The change of account status change who imposes compliance requirements and what those requirements are. Number 2, implementing compliance requirements too narrowly, causing non-compliance. I find this happens often when companies outsource different functions of their business. While they may be completely compliant with requirements internally, they fail to notify, monitor, and get reporting on that same compliance that applies to their outsourced activities. An example would be PCI and data security requirements. These mandates apply to your data no matter where it is stored, at your premises or at an outsourced service provider. Requirements are imposed for a reason. What is the reason? Unfortunately, many compliance notifications are sent out without convincing or detailed justifications. The section of the operations bulletin titled Reason or Background Information often sounds lame and invented. I can't count the number of times I have read through mandate documents and thought, nice money grab, eh? Never be afraid to push back on the mandating authority and require them to provide you with the compelling reason for the mandate. The data showing the reason for the mandate and how that data will be used going forward to show the effectiveness of the mandate. How does this mandate fit into a larger strategy? Compliance mandates that do not align with larger strategy are a useless waste of time, money, and energy. Does your company currently have a process or product in place that addresses the drivers behind this mandate? Can your solution be used in place of the mandate because it fulfills all the mandate requirements? I find this question very useful when a mandate includes a requirement to subscribe to a service or software solution provided by the mandating authority. What teams and infrastructures are impacted by these requirements? If you have already created the business flow database I mentioned a few points ago, this analysis is easy to do. Simply follow the process flow to identify the teams and infrastructure impacted by the compliance requirements. If you don't have a centralized process database, the next best solution is to attempt to identify the impacted departments. Alternately, you can bring all departments into a meeting to have them identify their roles, processes, or infrastructure that are impacted by the new or changed requirements. In my experience, this is a far inferior solution. I'll make some more comments about this at the end of the video. What are the consequences of non-compliance? I have seen many companies go to this point first instead of last. They seem to be doing a cost analysis. Is it less expensive to comply or to be fined for non-compliance? This mentality makes compliance requirements a financial question only, with no thought as to the security concerns, the reputational risk, or business opportunities embedded in the compliance requirements. That is a sad and sorry way to run a business. Non-compliance comes in two flavors: non-compliance with the requirements of the mandating entity, and a compliance solution that isn't compliant with your corporate infrastructure and strategy. The consequences of a non-compliance are very important. They include things like security concerns. This is especially true with security and cryptographic key mandates. The mandating authority may have information about new types of data attacks that leave your company very vulnerable if you don't comply with the requirements. Reputational risk. There are a number of mandates, especially on the acquirer and merchant side, that attempt to protect the reputation of the merchants, acquirers, and the payment networks. Weeding out the bad actors in this space is like a game of whack-a-mole. The criminals keep reinventing themselves to take advantage of loopholes. Therefore, the mandates have to keep changing to keep chasing the bad actors. This same risk is addressed by Know Your Customer and anti-money laundering and data privacy mandates. Legal risks. Is the mandate in response to new or changed legislation? Non-compliance can carry a risk of criminal prosecution, a criminal record, and being banned by a government. Missed business opportunities. Over the years, I have conducted hundreds of monthly bulletin reviews with my customers. Identifying business opportunities was the hardest aspect of compliance for them to see. In fact, the monthly meetings rarely had business people in the room. I do remember one exception. This customer did include product and operations people in the monthly review meetings. This allowed us to look for and find business opportunities hiding behind the compliance mandates. We found ways to turn restrictions into desirable new product features. This had a material positive impact on their corporate profitability. Cost of compliance and non-compliance. At the bottom of the list, we look at the cost of compliance and non-compliance. This discussion needs to include different paths to compliance, their varied costs, and the feasibility of getting a waiver or extension to the compliance requirements so that your solution can be strategic and not just tactical. Penalties for non-compliance will be in the discussion, but only as a minor point. Partnerships. Compliance is one piece of a larger corporate business strategy. Let me explain. Within your company, the following teams have overlapping responsibilities and goals. Compliance. This team ensures your company and its roles, processes, and infrastructure are in alignment with the mandates by governing entities and contractual agreements. Vendor management. This team manages your company's relationship with its service providers and vendors. Part of their role is to relay compliance requirements to these entities. As well, a good bilateral relationship between compliance and vendor management provides the vendor management team with pertinent information to help them manage their vendors. It also provides the compliance team with real-time feedback on the vendor implications of new compliance requirements. As I mentioned in my last video, these two teams need to work together as one team as there is so much overlap in their roles. Corporate strategy. This team determines the direction your company is heading. A part of that strategy needs to be informed by compliance so that future products and services will be compliant out of the gate. As well, the compliance team needs to receive regular input from the strategy team to ensure that compliance solutions match the corporate direction. Let me give you an example of how strategy and compliance need to work together. A number of years ago, I was meeting with a bank's finance team. We were designing their settlement flow for a new credit card products they were bringing to the market. The meeting started with this conversation. Them. What do we have to do to make a compliant settlement solution? Me. Could I ask you a question first? What is your current settlement setup, and what is your strategic direction for settlement over the next 5 years? Them. Just stunned silence. I got them to diagram their current and future settlement flow state on the meeting room whiteboard. Once they did that, we worked together to build a solution that was compliant with the payment network I supported and aligned with their current state and with their future strategic direction. One build fulfilled compliance requirements, matched the current processes, and aligned with the customer's strategic direction. Business continuity and disaster recovery. This is a role I have done for a few decades, so I have unlimited empathy for how undervalued the business continuity team is. Maybe one day I will do a video series like this one on business continuity and disaster recovery. A well-supported business continuity team will have complete process flow diagrams, infrastructure inventories, as well as exhaustive lists of vendors and suppliers. There is a natural partnership between this team and compliance as each has critical information for the other. Finance. Finance is the heartbeat of any organization. They are also a natural partner to the compliance team, providing reporting to the compliance team to identify any non-compliance fees or fines, identifying vendor or network billings that don't align with agreed services, products, or legal agreements. Compliance can also give the finance team advance warning of compliance changes that will have financial implications. Executive C-suite. I don't know if I've ever seen a CEO who knows his compliance team. That is incredibly unfortunate both for the CEO and for the compliance team. In my experience, payment network presentations for the customer C-suite almost never contain anything about compliance, new technical requirements, or rule changes. However, any of these can have significant impact on your company's infrastructure, process flow, and corporate direction. I would like to see every company C-suite have a quarterly debrief with the appropriate people from the compliance team. I think the two-way information exchange would benefit both groups and would give the company a strategic and operational advantage over its competitors. In this video, we have covered the following principles for the compliance teams. Scope, knowing where mandates come from and how far they apply. And partnerships, knowing important partners who provide value to the compliance and receive benefit from partnering with the compliance team. One of your biggest challenges will be how to make this work in your company. Each company has geographic, cultural, and infrastructure features that are unique. They can become impediments or benefits depending on how they are used. I would be glad to meet with you and set up a project to document your company's process flows and teams. This would be followed with recommendations on potential future state structure to better leverage the uniqueness and strengths of your company. A path from here to there to allow your business to meet its current needs and, at the same time, transition to a more effective future state. And an experienced mentor to walk that path with your team, training, coaching, mentoring, and further refining the path to unlock the best success for your company. If you found this video helpful, please click the like button and subscribe to this channel. If you have more questions about the payments industry, leave a message in the comments below. You can also contact me through my website, mentoredbymarkt.com, or via email, markt@mentoredbymarkt.com.